They do, because silly things like guys make weird noises during the night. I know, I've heard a tape. Yeah. We have to make those noises to keep the dinosaurs away from the cave. Don't you understand? When we were cavemen, we made those noises so the dinosaurs wouldn't come in and kill us. That's why... Dinosaurs outside. Jesus, I'm not going in there. Sounds like there's a bunch of them. Hurry up, man. Let's get extinct.
This series of videos is my opinion on world news. I haven't voted for 30 plus years and have no allegiance to a country's leaders or parties. I also have no religious belief. Among other things, if you are easily triggered by other people's opinions that differ from your own, I suggest you don't watch. This voice was brought to you by AI.
I don't care, but I do found Lenny Henry funny. Just going to put that out there. I think he's probably below average at best. I think he came out at a time, I think is early mid 80s to 90s, where I think in America we had big black comedians like Eddie Murphy and Richard Pryor, sort of more the 80s, 70s, 80s, or making it big. And I think he wanted to compete on that stage, but he was by no means at their level. But it's not all doom and gloom for him. He did sort of make it in sort of television, was in various programs, and eventually married Dawn French. Was a massive bonus because she's a lovely, fantastic comedian. So yeah, he married her, and oh, she's white, by the way. For anyone just wondering out there. Yeah, he married Dawn French, and but as it sort of progressed, his career as he aged spiraled because obviously his comedy wasn't the best, and now he sort of makes adverts for a Premier Inn. Yeah, so his career spiraled. He did get knighted. I'm not sure what he got knighted for. I guess it's his charity work. I couldn't really give. I'm not even bothered to look it up. But, you know, I mean, loads of people do charity work. So I guess it's his charity work that he got knighted for. So he is actually Sir Lenny Henry. But, you know, that's by the by. It is where it is now. And where he is now, well...
Just before we finish, stand-up comedian Sir Lenny Henry has co-written a new book that's being taken seriously by some called The Big Payback, arguing modern racism stems from the slave trade, so every black British person should receive financial compensation at a total cost of $18 trillion. He can't be serious.
Well, you mentioned he's a comedian there. I think this is probably his sickest joke yet. There are 2.4 million black people in Britain. Just to give you a bit of context, 1,000 illegal immigrants actually crossed the English Channel yesterday. Let's just, for the sake of argument, let's just say that 500 of them are black. Once we give them a British passport, do we also have to give them reparations as well as a house, free healthcare and everything else? Most black people in Britain as well, unfortunately for Lenny Henry, came directly from Africa, or are the descendants of people who came directly from Africa. So they're not part of this kind of, you know, heritage of Caribbean slave trade that he likes to go on about. So yeah, I mean, a pretty shocking stuff really to suggest that we all owe 18 trillion quid's worth of reparations for black people in Britain. I'm not really sure how it would work in practice, and if Lenny Henry cares about the fact that that might benefit everybody.
I mean, it's a ridiculous idea. As I said, it would cost trillions of dollars. And I'm not sure that just giving money to every black person in the UK is going to magically stop racism. Anyway, like you said, he's a comedian, and I suppose that proposal should be taken as such. Patrick Christie's great to speak with you. Thanks for joining me.
Yes, you heard correctly. He wants preparations for 18 trillion. 18 trillion. he wants us to give to the Caribbean and Jamaica and stuff. 18 trillion for slavery, and including himself and the British people. I can't get my head around because I'm getting annoyed now by this whole narrative. What the one thing I'll just like to touch on one thing. Firstly, now it's getting annoying that you're getting sort of black artists, people like Whoopi Goldberg's another one, right? Her career is basically she had a good career, Star Trek, various movies and such, and she had a great career, loads of money. But as her career's dipped and she's become a nobody, she suddenly jumped on this whole white people are evil, give me money kind of thing, money grab. And now Lenny Henry's doing the same. His career's was sort of going up. Married Dawn French was a great bonus for him. That brought him up higher. Wealthy white lady. And now his career's dipping, so he's now dating actually another wealthy white lady. There's nothing to read from that. And as he's going down, he's thinking now, hey, I'm running out of money. Where can I get money from? Oh, yes, slavery. We were slaves. How about if you just, I don't know where you got the number 18 trillion from. Where would you pull? Like, we're owed money. 18 trillion? Does that sound okay? As they touched on the video, just see, not only everybody bankrupt, absolutely ruin and destroy England, but, you know, imagine things like the government trying to pay 18 trillion. Yeah, okay, we'll do it. Here's 18 trillion. England's gone, by the way, now. The NHS is gone. Everything's gone. All the black people here, even, they got nothing now. Nothing has just gone into complete anarchy because there's no law or anything. Nothing can be subsidised or paid for or anything now because we're in such debt now. It's just come massive crime fest, you know. But they've got some money in their pocket, so there's that. You know what I mean? This absolute, it's got to be the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Before I press on, let's just actually read what Lenny Henry wants. Wants the money. So Lenny Henry has called for the UK to pay 18. What a mad amount of money. Oh man, I wonder if we just put that in some sort of randomizer. Pay 18 trillion in reparations to Caribbean nations and Black Britons affected by the legacy of slavery. He argues that the UK owes this compensation due to the enduring harm caused by the transatlantic slave trade, which he claims is the reason for modern racism and the over-representation of black British people in the prison population. Nothing to do with the crimes they're committing. Nothing to do with that. It's because of the slave trade that happens hundreds of years ago. Nothing to do with the crimes they're committing. Which estimates that Britain owes 18.6 trillion in reparations for the loss of liberty, unpaid labour, psychological trauma. I'm not even right. And continuing inequalities in health, wealth, education stemming from slavery. That's a massive, isn't it? To put it all on. So, I mean, this guy's a sir now. By the way, he's knighted and he's successful, got some money. So I'm trying to sort of work out at what point he suffered in health, wealth, education, and how the slavery damaged him psychologically. I'm trying to work that out right now. Sir Lenny Henry, maybe we should take the sir from you then. If if you can't sue Britain that made you a sir, and with it all the benefits that come with that, but then say they held you back and you're basically ruined because of it. It's sort of, it's one or the other. You can't go, yeah, thanks for that. By the way, you owe me this because you ruined me. But yeah, I'll take that anyway. Absolute bollocks. This actually got me thinking. I'm just thinking, so what damage what is this money looking to do, and what damage has it done? We owe them money and stuff. So that's got me thinking. So 18 trillion. What could 18 trillion buy you? Let's just say they've got 18 trillion. What could that actually buy you? Or what could that money be better spent on? And I just started wondering, and I sort of had a quick look what Henry might have his eyes set on when he gets his money. So the Caribbean. Listing price for James Ellington. You can buy an island in the Caribbean for 650 to 45 million pounds. Imagine having 18 trillion, or even just a trillion. You could buy islands, or quite a few islands in the Caribbean, or the Bahamas. Even cheaper, the Bahamas, British Virgin Islands, Curaçao, Honduras, South Pacific. You could buy. There's quite a lot of money, but mainly the Caribbean. If you had 18 trillion, Their island's only worth 45 million. You know what I mean? So Britain's thinking, we could give you 18 trillion, or we could just buy the Caribbean and just buy it. There we go. Yeah, about that. It's ridiculous. But then as I sort of drifting away from that, because that thought was like a mustard fart, momentarily lingering and then slowly drifting away. And then I started thinking, Lenny Henry, actually. So what are your roots? Where do you come? Who are you? Where do you come from? So, Lenny Henry. Sir Lenworth George Henry. He's British Jamaican, comedian, actor, presenter and writer. He gained success as a stand-up comedian and impressionist in the late 1970s, early 1980s. So he done the Lenny Henry show. So he's a black British comedian at the time, and much of his material served to celebrate and parody his African Caribbean roots. In 1985, he co-founded the charity Comic Relief. Yada yada yada. What else did he gain? So he's in the. I didn't realise he's in the new series of Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power. The British public ranked Henry number 18 in ITV's poll of TV's 50 greatest stars. Not a clue about that. We can't have many stars if he's in the top 50. I don't know. Anyway, Henry was the Chancellor of Birmingham City University in February 2024. He announced his planned retirement from the position at the end of 2023-2024 academic year and 8 years in the post. So, okay, but let's look at his early life. And this is what I thought the most interesting part. Early life. George Henry was born at Burton Road Hospital in Dudley on 26th of August 1958 and named after the doctor who delivered him. To Winston Jervis Henry, 1910-1978, and Winfred Louise Henry, 1922 to 1998, who had immigrated to Britain from Jamaica. So I don't know if you know anything about the immigration. What happened is that after the World War, we was terribly short on people in the UK, so we sort of opened our borders to let people in, and and sort of welcomed out open arms. Income, we're short on people. We've been bombed by the Germans. We've been obliterated. We could really do with extra people. Come on in. So they said, yeah, we'll come. Yeah. And they come here, and it looks like had a successful life. Not sure where the slave part comes into all that, because they chose to come here. They didn't come here like in any other way. They literally chose to come to England. This is what's the bizarre thing about the whole thing. Oh, he wants money now for the slavery. Where was I? A man who was later... Oh, and this is a bit... When Henry was 10 years old, he began spending time with the man who was later revealed to be his biological father, Albert Augustus Bertie Green, another Jamaican immigrant with whom his mother had a brief relationship with when she first arrived in England from the native Jamaica. So there we go. I suppose we should pay them for that as well, for his mum having an affair with the dad. And that's England's fault. England, you did this. If she hadn't come to England, it would never have happened. So there's that. But then, having thought of all this, and I know there'll be people out there now going, well, they were slaves. They were slaves. That's what he's on about. That's what he's referring to. Jamaicans are all slaves, and you're all evil. The British are evil. So let's actually look at the history of Jamaica, shall we? I think it's important to touch on this before we give Henry 18 trillion pounds, and it'd probably do him well to learn the history of Jamaica before he starts saying they're all slaves, it's British fault, and we should just throw money at the Caribbean and Jamaica and everyone, just throw money at all black people. So let's look at, because I've already established a lot of the British black people were actually originally here, would come here by choice, by immigration, because you come in, and they'll come here by choice. That's the vast majority came here by choice. But let's touch on the Jamaica, as I said. Right, so Jamaica, around 650 AD, Jamaica was settled by the people of Ostinoid culture, ancestors of the Taino, who likely came from South America. I'd just like to establish that these people were not black people. Alligator Pond in Manchester Parish and Little River in St Anne Parish are among the earliest known sites of this Ostinoid culture, also known as the Redware culture. These people lived near the coast and extensively hunted turtles and fish. Around 950 AD, the people of the Metallican culture settled on both the coast and the interior of Jamaica, either absorbing the redware culture or co-inhabiting the island with them. The Taino culture developed on Jamaica around 12,000 AD. They brought from South America a system of raising yucca, known as conuco, to add nutrients to the soil. The Taino burned local bushes and trees and heaped their ash into large mounds into which they then planted yucca cuttings. So, just like to establish here, the original inhabitants were South American, very likely probably sort of your American Red Indian types, or more like your Mexican, South American types. So they were not black at all. The original inhabitants of Jamaica were not black. So then, where did they come from? Where did the black people come from? What happened to these people? Well, let's have a look into that, shall we? Oh, we've already established some of what's been covered here. The Caribbean islands, who sort of inhabited first, the Redware people and Arawak tribes, including the Tainos, prior to the arrival of Columbus in 1994. The early inhabitants of Jamaica named the land Zanamaca, meaning the land of wood and water. The Spanish enslaved the Arawak, who were ravaged further by diseases that the Spaniards brought with them. Early historians believe that by 1602, the Arawak-speaking Taino tribes were extinct. The Spanish actually wiped all the early inhabitants out. However, some of the Taino escaped into the forested mountains of the interior, where they mixed with runaway African slaves and survived free from the first Spanish and then the English rule. So what happened was the Spanish went over there with their black slaves, pretty much wiped out the early inhabitants, and then the Spanish also captured and transported hundreds of West African people to the islands for the purpose of slavery. However, the majority of Africans were brought into Jamaica by the English. But the early, we're going to touch on that, but the early people were wiped out by the Spanish, and then the original ones were made up by West Africans into Jamaica. So Jamaica's pretty much isn't a black country originally. They were made up of slaves brought there, so the country really isn't theirs in the first place. They wouldn't own that country if Europeans or Spanish didn't take them there. Then later on the English take them there. So they wouldn't even have that country at all if we didn't take them there. So, in 1955, the English invaded Jamaica. This is where we come into it. So it's not until 1965 the English invaded Jamaica and defeated the Spanish. Some African enslaved people took advantage of the political turmoil and escaped to the island's interior mountains, forming independent communities which became known as the Maroons. Meanwhile, on the coast, the English built the settlement of Port Royal, a base of operations where piracy flourished, as so many European rebels had been rejected from their countries to serve sentences on the seas. Captain Harry Morgan, a Welsh plantation owner and privateer, raided settlements and shipping bases from Port Royal, earning him his reputation as one of the richest pirates in the Caribbean. So, just a quick roundup of all that. Jamaica originally wasn't inhabited by black people. It was inhabited by South American people, who were then wiped out pretty much by the Spanish, and the ones that survived sort of mingled with the black people, the Africans that come over from the Spanish, come over to the Spanish, who tried to inhabit the island. And then it wasn't until the British come along, actually with their slaves, then they brought more black people with them, who then eventually just took over. The British pushed the Spanish out. The black slaves claimed Jamaica as their own, and now inhabit Jamaica, and now have Jamaica. Jamaica's now theirs. So they wouldn't even be there if it wasn't for Europeans, and they certainly wouldn't own it if it wasn't for the British. So I think to say that we owe them money and reparations, because do we then own the original owners, the Taito people? Do we owe them money? Who owes them money? Do we owe them money, or does the black people owe them money? Because what happened to them? Who are they wiped out by? The ones that remained, who are they wiped out by? So this whole thing, and this is going back hundreds of years. Of course, this is going back hundreds of years, of which people like Lenny Henry in this country come over here by choice of his people. Because let me just touch on that for a moment. So, between 1955 and 1968, 191,000 Jamaicans settled in the UK. These first-generation migrants created the foundation of a community that is now well into its third if not fourth generation. They come over by choice. We're not slaves. Jamaicans continued to migrate to the United Kingdom during the 1970s and 80s, albeit in smaller numbers. The majority of these people were from poor households and went to extreme lengths to get to Britain because they were extremely poor in their own countries, in Jamaica. There is an uneven distribution of household wealth throughout Jamaica, and during the economic crisis of the 1990s, lower class Jamaicans continued to migrate in significant numbers. A lot of these later arrivals came from Jamaica's capital and largest city, Kingston, where the divide between rich and poor is much more evident than other places on the island. Most first-generation immigrants moved to Britain in order to seek the improved standard of living, escape violence, or to find employment. Almost half of all the men who came from the Caribbean in the UK throughout the 1950s had previously worked in skilled positions or possessed excellent employment credentials. However, many found their access restricted to jobs the local population considered undesirable, such as general labouring, or to jobs that demanded antisocial hours. Over half the men from the Caribbean initially accepted jobs with a lower status and the skills and experience qualified for them. Jamaicans therefore followed the pattern of other irregular immigrant groups, where they tended to work in poorly paid jobs in poor working conditions, as these were the only ones available to them. I mean, look, they have gone from a better place, but unfortunately for the times, those were the times. It's not the times now by any standards. They sort of weren't gifted the opportunities that white people were gifted. But should we pay them for that? No, because they come here by choice, because the lifestyle here was still better, much better than what they was getting back home. They chose to come here. They weren't slaves and brought over here against their will. Was it unfair? Yes, but still not against their will. It was their choice. And finally, to finish up on this point, slavery in Jamaica officially ended on August 1st, 1834, when the British Emancipation of Act 1833, the British abolished slavery. The British were the first to abolish slavery across sort of all their places, and then other places started following suit shortly after, like America and things like that, and most of Europe, majority of Europe. The British started off and just ended slavery. It didn't end. There's one place it didn't end, however, and slavery to this day is still the worst in any place on the planet. Guess where that place is? Africa, where they all originate from. To this day, Africa still has a massive, as well as places like India and Pakistan still have slavery. Africa, it's still rampant. We tried to stop it. The rest of the sort of Western world has tried to stop slave trade in Africa, but we cannot. And that's pretty much, this is what people don't realise, that when black people went over there, when white people went over there and took slaves from Africa, we just walk in, pull them out and take them, pinch them, run in at night and nick them. They were sold to us by black slave traders. They were black people that what they do is to go from tribe to tribe, wiping out tribes or capturing tribes for their own armies to gain land. And then some of the tribes they'd sell them or switch them up for weapons and stuff like that, and gold and things like that. So black people were selling slaves to white people. And to this day, Africa still has a terrible, terrible problem with slavery. Africa is the home to some of the highest levels of modern slavery in the world, despite the global efforts to eradicate slavery. It persists in various forms across the continent. The African Union and the Arab League have been criticised for their failure to address the issue of slavery within their member states, allowing the ancient crime to continue in the modern era. The Global Slave Index produced by Walk Free provides the national estimates of modern slavery for 160 countries, including Africa. The index draws on thousands of interviews with survivors and nationally representative household surveys. It highlights the countries with the highest prevalence of modern slavery, which are often conflicted and have weak governance. In summary, Africa continues to face a significant challenge with modern slavery, with countries like Eritrea and North Korea lead the list of countries with the highest levels of modern-day slavery. The issue is compounded by systematic failings in governance and law enforcement, making it a complex and ongoing crisis. So to round it up, this is what gets my goat. Why in today's time are we still trying to blame the British for things that happened hundreds and hundreds of years ago, when modern slavery is still happening in Africa? Why is that not being addressed? Why are these people, these black guys that originated from Africa, Why are they not trying to stop that? Why, instead of just trying to take money from the white people, why not just get your money, the money you got, your wealth you've got, Sir Lenny, go to Africa and use it to stop slavery that's happening today if you're so concerned. I think you're more concerned about lining your pockets with money. You're running out of cash, you want some extra pocket money to I don't know what you can do with it. But you can see there's a clear problem here, can't you? There's modern slavery going on. You're just going to continuously to brush over that, ignore it, and yeah, it's not a problem. We're just more concerned with making money from what the British done, don't know why, just the British, hundreds and hundreds of years ago. I just, the 18 trillion is just blowing my mind, and I'm not sure where he's got that number from. And I'm not sure, you know, it'd be great if he gave us an invoice. He showed an invoice and a breakdown of the expenditure and what he needs to spend that money on and why he's estimated that much money. That would be brilliant if he just, you know, make a sort of an effort rather than a sweeping statement that having a complete complaint about racism and the problem with the world today is just because of the British. And now we have to pay for everything, everyone's crimes. You know, we have to pay for the Spanish crimes, Africans' own crimes, slavery. You know, we have to pay for everyone's crimes. The British have to pay for it. You know, this tiny little country, we just seem to be getting it full sides of the moment. It's like, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, people can say like, oh well, the British, they did this. But the majority of the world speaks English and writes English, and that's us. We did that. I'll chase all that up in another video to come up, but I'm going to end it there because I've waffled on about this far too long. I'd love to hear your takes and your views on this. What do you think? Should be, you know, is Lenny Henry right to sort of demand this much, £18 trillion, or you know, do you think that's just mad? Maybe less, give him less money, or do you think the reparations are completely nonsense? Or I'd love to hear your views on it and your opinions as always. So anyway, I'll prattle on some more too much and just go on another tangent. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. And please subscribe and share and drop a like because the likes really help the channel. And I'll see you in my next video. Goodbye for now.